where do we fix our eyes? Where do we concentrate our efforts so that not only we regain a sense of agency, like this is my country, but also a sense of pride in this nation that despite its very deep flaws, we all love so much?
Wow.
Give me the answer, Mona. On Sunday, center-right candidate Friedrich Merz won the seat of Germany's highest office, that of the chancellor, in a victory where the far-right party Alternative for Germany came in at a close second. The New York Times reported that though it lost, AfD doubled its support, making it the strongest showing for a far-right party since World War II. Within hours, Elon Musk had called not Merz, but the leader of AfD to congratulate her on her increasing influence, a relationship that Musk has celebrated since coming out in full support of the party earlier this year on X. The White House has made no similar direct congratulations to the losing party. However, President Trump did praise German conservatives and himself on Truth Social for channeling the MAGA fervor into action overseas. Joining us to talk more about what's happening in Germany and why that should matter to us here in the U.S. is the Bulwark's Mona Charen. Mike, Mona says Trump has an iron grip. And I wonder, is it Donald Trump or is it Elon Musk?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you're already seeing polling on Musk that is looking bad. Musk was not terribly beloved before Trump took office, and his poll numbers have indicated that his popularity is sinking since Trump took office, even while Trump's popularity has stayed kind of flat. Now, obviously, Trump seems, if anybody saw what the scene at the cabinet meeting yesterday,
Tech support.
Yeah, people, you see that Trump just has a ton of affection for the guy. He, whether it's his wealth, whether it's whatever Elon is promising, whether it's just sort of proximity, I don't know exactly what's going on there. But nonetheless, you see that Trump really does have deep affection for him. At the same time, the only thing that Trump loves more than Elon is Trump. And if he starts to get the feeling that Elon is hurting him with his followers, because the way things are unfolding is it seems to be rather unpopular, broadly speaking. If they continue to do things like, oops, we shut off the funding for Ebola, prevention, or oops, we said we turned on the funds for PEPFAR after we'd cut them off, but now the PEPFAR people are saying the funds are still cut off. If that kind of stuff keeps happening, if people start dying, sickness starts spreading, the world starts to destabilize, certainly the American people are going to quickly turn on Elon. He's the easier target in some ways. And I think if that happens, I think you'll see Trump turn on him pretty quickly as well.
Well, the problem is, though, that those things are so far downstream. By the time you see the consequences of the destabilization of the world, by the time you don't have flu shots in 2026, those kinds of things, it's so far down the process because so few people understand how the system works, and decisions that are made in February of 2025, often you actually see just how awful they are in 2027.
Yeah, well, please don't mishear me as optimistic.
Yeah.
Well, at the risk of injecting a tiny ray of hope here,
Please do.
let me say
Clarissa will welcome it.
that the way our system is structured, it does tend to frustrate assigning responsibility for things because, the Congress proposes things and the president signs them and the agencies, whatever, and it's complicated and people don't always know who's responsible for what. This time, though, when you've got Elon Musk holding a golden chainsaw, and the cuts are obviously coming entirely from Doge and from the Trump administration. This one is not going to be so easily passed off as, well, we weren't responsible. And by the way, I would also say to Mike, the cuts that you mentioned, and then in addition to those, things like veterans benefits, medical care for veterans, all kinds of things that are going to touch actual people's lives. I just wrote a piece that came out today about the corruption of this administration. But, one of the key signature moves was firing 17 inspectors general. Now, if DOGE were really a sincere effort to cut waste and to find fraud and to streamline government operations, they would be hiring and empowering IGs, more of them, because that's exactly the kind of work they do. And instead, they fired them all because they want to escape accountability. They don't want those people to be whistleblowers on what they're doing. And of course, they're eliminating jobs in the most meat axe fashion, without any regard to the importance or the essential nature of some of the jobs that people are doing, and that I think it will come back. It will come back to bite them. Americans have always said that they are in favor of cutting government until it impacts a program that they rely on, and because they're being so indiscriminate, I think the blowback will be pretty intense eventually.
And this also gives a test for the church, because an easy line that people have thrown out for the last 50 years is to say, we don't need Medicaid, we don't need SNAP, we don't need these things. If the church just did what it was supposed to do, we wouldn't need these things. Now, there's a sense in which that's exactly right, that we don't have the kind of Book of Acts picture of a church caring for one another. But it's been an easy dismissal line of all of these structures and systems when those things are gone. And when you have postal workers and Veterans Administration workers and others in your congregations who now are without health care and who are without jobs, what does the church do? Do we just ignore that and move on? Or how do we help those people? How do those of us who are pro-life deal with the babies who are born who previously would have had Medicaid benefits, and we don't know that they will now? Will the church do anything here? That's going to be a key question in the next few years.
Well, and then with the cuts at a place like USAID, caveat emptor, yes, does USAID need reform? Or if some of these things that have been reported are true, that certainly that USAID needs reform. Probably all of government needs reform. But the sort of slash and burn approach, part of what that's done, because it's impacted things like PEPFAR, because it's impacted these things, where you have Christian organizations way downstream that are helping to implement these things on the ground. Again, I talked to somebody the other day, and they said, well, it seems like this is a great moment for Christians to step up and start writing checks and doing everything they can to take care of them. And I said, well, the problem in one sense, the problem isn't the money. I mean, inside the U.S. federal budget, these things are basically a rounding error in terms of what we're doing to help with these places. But what the U.S. government can do that no one else can do is, first of all, have all the relationships with the governments to get the needed aid in and out, manage the logistics of flying the stuff in and out, and because it comes from the United States government and because it is because it's backed by the United States government, it prevents local gangs, warlords, malevolent actors from coming in and stealing it and taking the aid into the black market. If you want to know what it looks like for aid to be dropped into a place without the implementation, without the oversight and implementation of the federal government, look at Gaza. That's what happens. Aid goes into Gaza, Hamas steals it, they mark it up, they destroy some of it, and whatever they can take to turn into weapons of war, they do.
And even at a lesser level than that, it's akin to saying, let's empower our Christian organizations to do disaster relief in North Carolina or Florida or my hometown, Biloxi, Mississippi, after a hurricane, but without an interstate highway system. I mean, we don't need government. We don't need to be able to get trucks there. I mean, that a lot of this is the basic infrastructure of getting this stuff to people when they need.
That is so true. And also, I was talking to several former USAID workers in the past few weeks. And the other thing is just all of the logistics, intelligence, communication support that the U.S. government provides across many different agencies that all cooperate. So they have liaisons with the military and they have liaisons with intelligence and all of this. And some of them were actually worried for their safety because they were told to come home. They weren't even sure whether their diplomatic status would be respected because they were no longer employees of the U.S. government. And what does that mean? Then you in some of these countries, that can be actually dangerous. The whole thing is such a disaster. I won't use a bad word.
and look, what I'm really afraid of is that the thing that'll change Trump's mind about this and sort of wake people up to it is when a bunch of Americans get killed because of the collapse of that diplomatic umbrella and protection and the collapse of trust in the faith and credit of the U.S. when we say we're going to be there for our people and things start to destabilize.
Yeah, we began this conversation talking about Germany and certainly Chancellor Merz. We're going to have to be watching what happens there as in the days to come. But I want to actually close where our conversation actually began, which was with you, Mona, and Russell sitting in this secure room waiting out a bomb threat. Because I think many of us, with what has happened over the last few weeks, feel in some ways like we're sitting in that kind of space too, that we're sitting in a space where we are constrained, where we are shaking our heads saying, is this really my country? Is this what America has become? And I wonder, in closing, where do we fix our eyes? Where do we concentrate our efforts so that not only we regain a sense of agency, like this is my country, but also a sense of pride in this nation that, despite its very deep flaws, we all love so much?
Wow.
Give me the answer, Mona.
We look. Give me the answer. Wow. Look, this is a moment where some leaders will step forward and find their voices and lead us in a better direction, or we will fail. And at other times of crisis in American history, unusual or unexpected leaders have come out of nowhere to guide us. And so that, if you're a praying type, that is what we should be praying for. And also remember agency, as I was saying earlier. Remember that we are still in the driver's seat. This is still a democracy, despite a very challenged one, and that what we say and do matters, and that however dispirited and despairing you may be feeling right now, there are scores of millions of Americans who feel exactly the same way. And if all those Americans who are feeling that way were our own country, we'd be huge. So keep that in mind, that there are so many of us. You're not alone.
What a good word.
I got a note last night about an entirely different matter from the biblical scholar Fleming Rutledge, who said, remember that the word steadfastness is one of the most repeated words, endurance, steadfastness, in the New Testament. And it's easy for us to forget that suffering leads to endurance, endurance leads to character, character leads to hope, and hope does not put to shame. We often have to remember to keep it in that order.
Listen to the full episode wherever podcasts are found.